Welcome to Leadership Within, the podcast that dives into the human side of leadership. I'm your host today, Vanessa, and I'm here with...
Myself, DK. Hey, Vanessa.
Hey, really good to be with you this morning.
Likewise. And a new studio for us, but I'm hoping that for our listeners, the experience will be quite the same.
Yeah, we're hoping for seamless. So today I was thinking about topics of things that would be really interesting to talk about. And this idea about politeness came up for me and how it can kind of get in the way of us being really powerful because we want to say the right thing. And so I wanted to explore, this idea of like safety actually isn't the same as connection. So we can be really polite and safe, but then we feel this deeper connection that's missing. And yeah, go on. Sorry.
Well, no. It's I feel like, for many people, I've been working with a few people, and we had a bit of a coaching session ourselves with a coach, and we've actually explored this. And it's interesting. What came to my mind is this particular situation and the word kindness versus politeness. But do go on. I'm just voicing my...
Oh, no, now I want to run with that. Let's go with that.
All right. So the value that we had as a team, that the people that were working with me were really focused on, is the value of kindness. And similar to you, I was interpreting it a bit as in, if we put it on a pedestal on the top spot in the podium, what we can have is, again, being afraid to show any divergent discord voices to disrupt the harmony of kindness, which, as you've mentioned, can be definitely very close to politeness. And I didn't feel it's productive, and it definitely led to, moments that were difficult, right? I've maybe provoked this conversation, which I think, at the longer run was quite beneficial.
I love that. So how did they recognize that they were, kind of mistaking this kind of kindness for being being real or connected?
Well, so in this moment, it was mostly me recognizing the fact that there were situations in our team that I wasn't happy with. There were some moments and some behaviors that I didn't find productive for the well-being and success of our endeavor together as a team. And I felt like even if I was voicing them, the conversation didn't go anywhere, right? Even if I was the one branded unkind because I, was saying that people were, or we were lazy, or didn't even want to address it to a particular person, or we didn't take enough initiative, again, using the we word, it's hard to address it as someone because of the inherent kindness. The discussion didn't go anywhere. It was just greeted mostly by silence because of, maybe me hitting too hard. And I always felt like, because we were always trying in this particular team to have this atmosphere of kindness, we couldn't talk about the difficult things that, were making us fail. So that's my example. But I think, Vanessa, you've got your own too.
Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because we can look at it from the team lens, like, wow, we noticed that behavior out there. And so I can bring a personal example that's just literally hot off the press for me.
All right, let's go.
Which is I'm working with someone in a new kind of colleague partnership, and there's lots of desire to do great work together. There's lots of care in the relationship, etc. And then the project that we're about to work on keeps getting pushed out. And I notice, like, on a number of levels, I feel a little bit frustrated by that. The part of me that says, come on, we've initiated this work with the team, let's get the momentum going, is feeling frustrated because it's like, oh no, now it's going to be another couple of months or whatever. And in this capacity, in our collegial relationship, I'm not the lead coach, I'm not designated the lead coach. So like there's a little bit of wanting to respect leadership. And there's also this part of me that when it kind of got pushed out again, I was like, something doesn't feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd kind of said, I hadn't quite owned that and said, I feel a little bit frustrated with this. What I said was, I think maybe the impact of this for the team might be XYZ, which was kind of a bit avoidant, to be honest. And then I got a response back that was very intelligent, like research says, the data won't change and and there was a voice in my head that was kind of like, yeah, I get that. I know that. and then there was another voice judging that, kind of going, oh, now you're being egotistical, Vanessa, now. And then there was this other part of me that was like, yeah, but there's a felt experience here. There's something. If I'm experiencing something and it's showing up here, it's going to show up out there too. And how do I get to a point where I articulate that rather than, just kind of sit on it? So I was in this two minds thing of like, oh, I'll just shut up and say nothing. Or I'll say something. And I used my friend ChatGPT to just kind of process, because sometimes, you come from that very logical, reasoned place. And sometimes when I'm a little bit in my felt embodied sense, I'm a little bit more emotional than you are, and less able to access that rationality, because I've got lots of different awarenesses and voices. So use my friend ChatGPT to just say, this is what's going on, and just, what do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And, I discerned through that I didn't really want to raise it as an issue. Like it's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one note that it sent back to me and said, are you doing that thing that is being polite? Are you avoiding something? And I thought, oh shit, yeah, I actually feel that too. I feel like I'm not being completely authentic. So I decided to, just send out a voice note and say, could we have a chat about this? But what I realized in that whole processing, and I really appreciated having something, like ChatGPT that was very logicked, was that what I am seeing is the point of difference between our styles that is coming up. Mm-hmm. And really, actually, rather than reacting to that, actually really wanting to get to a place of embracing it and saying, wow, look at the range that we can bring. But in order for me to have had that conversation, I've got to get over this thing in me that says, be polite, like don't rock the boat, like don't, all that kind of stuff that's showing up. And so it kind of felt really relevant for this conversation, because whilst that would have given some sense of safety and some sense, which is really common for me in where there's a position of rank, to kind of just acquiesce a little bit, mm-hmm. and kind of go, okay, you take the lead. I know that won't bring greatness in the work. So it doesn't create connection. It creates this false connection, this surface level connection, where I show up in this role and it doesn't, we don't do the deepest, boldest work that we could. So, that's the example that I've got, like, where it's like, oh, wow, I've got to cross my edge and realize that I'm not judging my colleague. I'm not saying right or wrong. Actually, what I'm trying to say is, wow, look at the differences, and how do we learn to work with this divergence, which was your point. Mm-hmm. Whilst also knowing that a part of me feels comfortable with, oh wow, you're like me, you sense like me. So I just noticed that kind of dichotomy showing up for me.
So that's actually quite interesting, because I'm observing two things as you're mentioning it. Right? There's and I'm sure that our listeners might also have heard these. First of all, the medium of communication here. How there's messages. How difficult it is to have a full spectrum of communication if the only thing you have to go on is chat
Yeah,
or
or
email, right?
email or a voice. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
a voice note, which is still like even it's asynchronous. Even if there is tone of voice, it's not
yeah,
the full breadth and depth that we evolve to use to communicate. Which is there's a another episode probably about the face to face and all kinds of communication. But obviously this is limited, right? So when we're communicating with someone through this limited medium by design, there's all kinds of things that happen. We communicate less with maybe the person, but our mental model of the person. So that's one thing that's really interesting. How this obviously creates a barrier. Like there's no doubt
yeah,
about it that happens and makes things even more difficult. And second of all, I mean, come on, Vanessa, we've been conditioned to be kind, to be nice, not to rock the boat throughout our childhood. That's what many times, being brought up in a certain environment for most people in the West means to behave in a certain way, to be nice, to be kind, to be gentle, well behaved, not rock the boat. So, how on earth can we expect ourselves to then blurt out these things without feeling a certain way?
yeah,
In my example, I felt it difficult to speak the I language. Was constantly going to we, even though I've meant a certain person. And I think that's quite difficult, isn't it? These two observations.
yeah. And I mean, do you know what? I've got laughter because it's laughter in the edge. Like I
Mhm.
recognize that in me. Like I don't want to own the I and take the risk that I might get punished or get rejected from the herd. So therefore, I'm going to talk about the we.
Which is perfectly normal. And going
Yeah.
back to like your topic, it doesn't create a real connection. What
No.
happens is these particular pathways of communication, this way of talking about difficult issues by escaping into the we, and obviously something I'm personally guilty of, and I help many clients work with that. Actually, that's actually our job, isn't it, Vanessa? And they become the norm. Then it's a
Yes.
status quo that it's hard to
Yeah.
change, right? And if you're changing it, people raise an eyebrow. It's like, what the hell is happening here? So
Yeah.
this false harmony is the name I've heard tossed around, and I've been using it too.
And it's everywhere, isn't it? Because I think the point that false harmony brings is that you can have this sense of safety and actually there's no intimacy, there's not real connection underneath it, and so therefore that limits what's possible.
It's true. Although you're right, but it's very hard to know where the real boundaries are um, without explicitly testing them. So even if someone
Mm.
says that they're open to something, it's only their words. And I believe that many people have a natural tendency, if it's not something that's a standard, well recognized way of behavior, they would be hesitant to use it. For instance, I would say, "Oh, Vanessa, as you know, for instance, even in this podcast, I say I'm very much happy with disagreement or debate, and I think it's even better if we don't always agree." And I remember how we have we mostly agree, and even if we disagree, how difficult sometimes it is to talk about it. We had one episode when we've done it in a masterful way, but we all know that these are just words sometimes, right? Like, oh, my doors are always open, or I always accept a challenge. Sometimes you just have to test the boundaries to know, and this is difficult and dangerous for many people in many situations.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I've got a whole host of, I think when I kind of hold back on disagreement, I've got a couple of things going on. I've got a whole host of narratives around what might happen if. So, I might not get the work, I might not get future work, a whole, a whole list of things can come up on that kind of, oh, do I speak up? Do I not place? Um, but also there's something that happens internally with me. And I think this is the internal work of
Mm-hmm.
leadership where, my early experience has been, you're wrong. if you take the risk, it's like, yeah, well, you don't see it right. You're wrong. and I think for me, there's a part of me that has just then internalized that. And at my edge, when I'm about to speak out, I can automatically make myself wrong first. Like, so it's like, bullying almost myself
The
rather than,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah. And I'm really aware of that. Like, as I kind of step into my hopefully next level of leadership, like, I'm really aware I'm at an edge, right? And I want, I want more healthy conflict in my life, and I want more real relationship and connections in my life. I realize that I've got a lack of connection in my life, but I've also, and my work, but I've got some really deep connections. And the ones that are deep are the ones where we've really dug in, and neither of us have kind of, there's always been that, the starting point of like, I really want to make you wrong here because you're such an arse or whatever. But we've got beyond that, and actually, it's like, how can we make this work? So one of the things I was thinking about is what helps, to get beyond this. Like, so for me in this situation, what really helped was my colleague has sent me a couple of voice notes on different things saying, I really love team. I really don't want to do the I thing. And I really love you. Like, and I know that sounds really fluffy, right? But it's like, I love you guys, but I genuinely feel the sincerity of the joy that the colleague has with me, with us, with different people. So I feel a level of, okay, this is safe because it isn't, like that care is there, as a kind of bedrock, if you like, and we can fall back to it. Whereas I haven't always felt that. And when I don't feel that, that then brings up the hustle in me to, what do I need to be? Who do I need to be? To kind of have you have that care, which is just such a waste of energy.
It is, and it's a great thing that
it is.
No. It is a waste of energy, isn't it?
Yeah.
To feel this way, right? Because I
Yeah.
felt it too. And the only thing I would say is it's so great that you've managed to get it. I think many leaders, because they're in a situation that they are the people that need to create this safety, this sense of reality of being real in a team, they don't always have the opportunity for someone to say that to them. And it's all about finding the safety, the comfort, the security within yourself internally, which is even more difficult. But then again, I guess the job of leadership is figuring out places that can recharge this sense for you, so you can show up with having that, so you can then show, well, that's what it means, right? I feel like I can be real because I feel safe internally.
Right. So what we're saying is, if you're a leader and you have some of these signals, like of kind of superficial safety, like we all agree with each other, we don't have hard feedback, or we avoid conflict. We check in and we do, everything's lovely, but there's very few challenges, and we're kind of frustrated, but not saying it. If we've got some of those signals, then the opposite of that, what might powerful connection look like?
It's such a lovely and wonderful feeling, because, as humans, we have the need for affiliation, and it's just, I'm imagining feeling that. I think it feels, and I'm remembering these moments, it tickles in a way that might not always be fun, right? You always feel like you are not completely safe. There is you can be yourself, but things are real. Things are maybe sometimes competitive. Maybe we need to work hard. Maybe we're in danger, right? But at least the reality of it. you feel that there's less of a mystery, there's less of a fog. There might be less frustration, there might be discomfort, but not coming from this particular frustration. Now, some might ask themselves, is it worth it, right? Maybe you work in an environment that's all about false harmony. A lot of the political settings are all about that, saving face and consensus. Not something I love to work with. Maybe this is why I haven't sought a career in politics.
So we've got this kind of realness, not just playing safe. And then we've got this ability to kind of almost disagree, hold different views, and still respect each other.
Yes, it's possible. But I would say to that is it needs because we have a natural tendency. Again, humans have a need for affiliation, some stronger, some weaker. The difference of opinion breeds the social distance, right? So the more we disagree, there's a tendency, there's psychological research on that we tend to like each other less. I mean, statistically. So if we disagree constantly in a group, what might happen is we might drift apart. So there needs to be something that balances it out, that balances and adds cohesion, because this will be a seesaw effect. We will be on edge when we reach this equilibrium, and we'll have to, as leaders, it's our job to maintain it somehow. And that's like being
What might that look like or be like? Or
so we need to, in my opinion, when it comes to group cohesion, we need to foster some sense of belonging, even if there's a lot of disagreement. Now, the easiest way that, and again, this might be like, this is, I think, the crux of this episode, is agreeing and being nice, which automatically generates cohesion, right? That's why I think it happens.
Yeah.
But not only for our internal need to feel safe and agree, and that's how we've been raised, but through just we want the cohesion. We need it. We're human beings.
Yeah.
And I think the powerful cohesion comes from, I'm not tearing up, but I'm definitely feeling the sense of happiness when I think about the common purpose, the sense of achievement, it's like Tolkien writing the Fellowship of the Ring after his experiences at the Sawn, right? This is the group cohesion, even in the face of mortal danger and life-threatening situations, that, the brotherhood, the fraternity, the sisterhood. This is something that brings cohesion even in these difficult times. When you think about, so we're not combatants, we haven't been to war, but these powerful friendships get formed in these situations of crisis through work together, through being close, through thick and thin. And you can imagine these people with John Tolkien in the trenches, brutal stuff, as we all know. And Dave, this is how it inspired him to talk about that. So what I will say is, as a leader, if you can be real and have this vocabulary and say, look, to succeed, we sometimes will need to disagree. But as a team, if we can build this sense of cohesion that can keep us together, let's talk about what will bring this sense of cohesion for you. As you might have heard, Vanessa, for me, it might have been an experience on the battlefield of the Somme. Not something I will be a part of, thankfully, I hope. But, for others, it might be something completely different. For you, it was this voice message that has said the fluffy, but yet a very important word from someone that communicates very intellectually. I love you, right? This has created it. And I think it's important to know in the people you work with, what is it that they are looking for in a group, in a team? What builds cohesion for them? That's quite a monologue. Sorry.
I love that. And I think, you bring it back to my example. I think what's helpful for me is to recognize when that trigger comes up and I feel the difference, is to lean into that difference, like to absolutely love that difference rather than marginalize it, push it away. Because I think we are mirrors for each other. It helps me to lean into my own intelligent aspects and think, oh, where am I leading with that? Or how do I want to show up in this instance? There's so much richness in this. I feel like I want to kind of bring this to a conclusion, to thank you a lot for that story about Tolkien. I didn't actually know that. So, and it brings such a visceral example to this, about, gosh, being in the trenches and actually that cohesion being formed from being in it together, like the purpose, and I think that's when we move from a group to a team, isn't it? When we're interconnected in that way and something comes through us, a purpose comes through us. So as a close, I think I'd just like to kind of say, if you sense like your team, as a leader, your team's being really nice, and things are being avoided, then maybe the invitation is just to sit with the question like, wow, what would it be like if we started telling the truth? And what's something that I, as a leader, can lead first, be the first to lead with? I think that might be a really interesting place to start.
It might, right? Be the change you want to see in the world and start first.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, and we wish you a great rest of your week.
Bye-bye.